want a life of my own.
Hello everyone, Solo Review. I was lucky enough to catch Priscilla at London Film Festival. The film has sort of been described as filling in the blanks of what Baz Luhrmann's effort last year sort of missed out, covering the aspects that were glossed over. And I was not a fan of 2022's Elvis at all, really. And I also feel that a lot of Sofia Coppola's filmography is a bit hit or miss, to put it lightly. But I'm glad to report that I would say this is more on the hit side. I do think there is a lot to gain out of the film. However, there are still a lot of flaws, all of which we'll be talking about in today's review. So Cailee Spaeny won the Venice Award, and I'm not mad. I genuinely think she delivers a pretty great performance, mostly throughout. She delivers sort of a very good presence on screen, which I think is definitely necessary if you're basing the whole film around her. She's on screen for pretty much all the film. So yeah, you do need to have that presence there. And I think even though she's young, even though she's a relative newcomer, I've not seen her in anything personally, I don't believe. She definitely does carry that commanding presence that is needed. And yeah, I actually think the most interesting aspects of this film are the explorations of the character and sort of just painting this character portrait, this character study. I do think that is where the film really succeeds. And it is primarily due to Cailee Spaeny's performance. And a lot of it is not done through dialogue, but it's actually done through sort of just gestures and the way that sort of changes and the way she delivers dialogue and all of those kind of things. That is how you communicate the emotion. I think that is a very interesting direction to sort of play with the story. Like, you don't see Priscilla just sort of, spewing all of her thoughts at Elvis towards Elvis. Yeah, you see it's a lot more subtle, and it is a very subtle film. A lot of the comedy really works for me, actually, and I wasn't expecting it to be funny going in at all. I had not heard that there was a lot of humor in it, but a lot of it did work. Yeah, it had me laughing out loud at various points. And I think a lot of the humor allows the messages to be delivered quite well and in a quite unique and memorable way. Like, we get all the sort of Elvis being a cartoonish doofus at the ending. We get the sort of ideas of manipulation, how easily Elvis was able to manipulate, but it's all done through comedy, which I think was interesting, and I think really worked for the film. Where the film fails actually is in the dramatic moments. I feel a lot of them fell flat when we're meant to have these sort of climactic things happening, and I do think most of that is actually due to Jacob Elordi's performance. I never really bought him as Elvis. I thought he lacked the gravitas. I felt he lacked the look, and it wasn't that he was just doing an imitation. I think that would be doing him a disservice. He is doing something, and he is bringing something to the role. But when we saw with what Austin Butler did last year, I just think it pales in comparison, and it's just not really the performance that was needed for this film. I think that Spaeny and Elordi really do lack chemistry with one another. And yes, I guess you could argue that that's the point, in that they sort of never really had the chemistry necessary for a functioning relationship. But equally, for a film, I think you do need that chemistry there. And it was just, I didn't find it in these two leads, which meant the sort of dramatic elements fell flat, as I said, didn't work for me, which is a shame, which is a big shame. I mean, I like the initial stuff with the sort of coming of age genre elements that it played on. I thought that was pretty good, and again, pretty unexpected. I thought it would just be a sort of biopic, down and dreary about fame and all of those kind of stuff. But actually, it had the sort of coming of age element. It had a sort of tender comedic edge to it, which I think is definitely necessary. I think visually, Sofia Coppola clearly had a vision for the film, and I think that is well achieved. Like, you see interesting framing choices, interesting shifts in visual style. You get the weird sort of, when they're having the wedding, there's a sort of complete change in visual style, but I think it really works. It isn't tonally inconsistent or visually inconsistent, but actually the visuals aid sort of understanding Priscilla's psychology at different moments better. And I also think the editing needs definitely highlighting, because there is various sort of comedic cuts that really add to the comedy and really add to the tone and voice that Sofia Coppola was trying to bring to the film. So yeah, I definitely think she had a vision, and that vision pays off. Although I think it's probably the most major problem that I had with the film, outside of, as I say, the lack of the chemistry between Elordi, who, by the way, I'm sure he is a good actor. I mean, I haven't seen much of him. Euphoria he was fine in, and I'm excited to see him in Saltbenches here. I don't want to harp on him too much, but I just don't think he delivered a great performance. But yeah, aside from that, I also think the screenplay aspect and the way it constructed a narrative was pretty poor. I think a lot of the film was quite aimless. A lot of the film was quite directionless. And it means that some of it is quite boring. It does feel quite bloated. It does feel a bit overly long. And which is weird since the story it's trying to tell is very sparse. It's very wide. It's a very big, ambitious story that it's trying to tackle. But for me, a lot of it felt unnecessary. It felt like there were a lot of scenes that they were just pinning back to back to back. And whilst each of the individual scenes may have been interesting within themselves and have something interesting about them, I think just stringing them together in this seemingly incoherent sort of just thrown together way, it did make the narrative feel hard to get behind, and it made me feel quite cold in places. So even though it is better as a sort of just character study and a character portrait, I do still think that it needed some sort of narrative structuring that sort of gave the film stakes and goals and anything like that. I didn't feel I got that from the film, and not every film has to have that, but I feel that this film would have been greatly aided if we did have a sort of place we wanted Priscilla to get to, you know? So yeah, that was a major sort of problem with the film, and one of the key takeaways. I was just like, yeah, because I was bored at points, I won't lie. Like, yes, Spain's performance is great, yes, the visuals are great, and they do keep you engaged. I can't lie though, I was bored in places. As said up top though, I do think the pros outweigh the cons. I think there is a lot to gain from this film, and I do, as I say, think it's better than 2022's Elvis by a quite decent amount. So I'd probably be looking at giving it a 7 out of 10. I think a lot of the elements work. There are a couple elements that just don't really work and don't really come together. But yeah, as I say, definitely still recommend watching it when it comes out, which I believe is in December in the UK. I don't know when it is for America. I'm not American, so I don't need to do US release dates. But yeah, on to sort of awards chances. So I feel that awards will be fairly limited for this film. I've seen talk for Cailee Spaeny, and look, would she be deserving? Possibly. Would she be in my top 5? Probably not by the end of the year. But I just think the category is almost too stacked. Like actress and supporting actor are probably the two most stacked acting categories you've got this year. Actress, especially, it's going to be very hard for anyone to break into. And so I just don't know if a name like Cailee Spaeny in a film that potentially won't have the sort of multi-nomination momentum, multi-nomination passion, I just don't see it happening for her, unfortunately. Although things like I could see her picking up some precursors, like Golden Globes. I definitely think that is possible. I can see the Golden Globes actually liking a film like this. And the Critics' Choice as well. I do think that is potentially there for her. Coppola's too far out of directing. Tex would be worthy for it. I think genuinely, like costumes, makeup, editing, as I say. I would be fine with seeing it be nominated. I think that it is genuinely very, very technically impressive as a film. Do I think that'll happen? No. Again, if it's just not picking up the momentum, it's not getting the passion in above the line categories like picture, like director, like even actress, I just don't see the text happening for it. So yeah, I think it will fall short at the Oscars proper, but it could show up here and there. I think this is going to be quite a polarizing film. I think it will leave a lot of people colder than it did me. Like, I think I'll enjoy it more than the majority of people, actually. But yeah, I think some branches might really just go for it. So you might see some awards groups just really going for Priscilla. I definitely think that is a narrative that we could see play out in the coming months. But yeah, I think that just about does it. I'm seeing a couple more films at London Film Festival, so you'll see a couple more of these solo reviews. I'm going to be doing one for the Book of Clarence. I'll be doing one for the Holdovers. Trevor's got some for Chicago. We'll both be doing a May-December one. So yeah, a bunch of sort of fun early reviews to look forward to. In addition to Oscar predictions, we're doing the October update and then usual news and other reviews kind of thing. So yeah, plenty to look forward to if you do so wish. You can support the SAG strikes in the link down below. As always, WGA strike is over, so I don't have to say that you can support that one anymore, although obviously still support the WGA, support the writers. They are what makes films film. But yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.